"Excuse me, sir. Would you like to dance?" The room went silent. A young black waitress stood nervously, her hand outstretched, not to the billionaire but to his son, sitting quietly in his wheelchair. Guests whispered, some sneered. "She's overstepping," a man muttered under his breath. But the boy's trembling smile told a different story. In that single moment, boundaries were crossed, prejudice was tested, and a truth too many ignore was forced into the light. What happened next changed everything, for the father, the son, and the world watching. For billionaire Richard Langston, evenings at the Grand Meridian Ballroom were predictable. Polished floors, champagne glasses clinking, and an endless sea of powerful handshakes. To him, it was just another night of appearances. But seated beside him was his son, Daniel, 14, quiet, and bound to a wheelchair since birth. While the world saw Richard's empire, Daniel often felt invisible, pushed to the corner of rooms that were never built with him in mind. Across the room, Maya Carter adjusted her apron, balancing a tray of empty glasses. 23 years old, working 2 jobs to keep her younger siblings in school, she had learned to move through spaces like this without drawing attention. "Smile, stay quiet, don't cause trouble," her manager always reminded her. But Maya's eyes noticed things, like how guests politely avoided Daniel, offering him sympathetic nods, but never real conversation. "Dad, can we leave soon?" Daniel whispered, his voice barely carrying over the music. Richard sighed, distracted, answering without looking, "In a bit, son. Just a few more introductions." Maya's steps slowed as she passed their table, catching Daniel's downcast expression. For a moment she hesitated. Something in her heart told her he didn't need pity. He needed to feel seen. And that single decision, whether to keep walking or to stop, would unravel a night none of them could have predicted. Because what Maya was about to do would challenge not only the whispers of the wealthy crowd, but the silent prejudice that had always lingered just beneath the ballroom's polished surface. Maya's hand lingered near Daniel's chair, her voice soft but steady. "Would you like to dance?" For a second, Daniel blinked, as if he hadn't heard her right. Around them, forks paused mid-air. Conversations halted. Someone at a nearby table let out a quiet laugh. "Dance with him," a guest muttered, too loud to be a secret. Richard's head snapped up. His billionaire charm cracked into something sharp. "Miss, that's inappropriate. Please, just do your job." But Daniel surprised everyone. His lips curled into a shaky smile. "Dad, please, just this once." The boy's trembling hands gripped the rims of his wheelchair, eyes fixed on Maya with a look of hope that had been absent all evening. Maya hesitated. The weight of every stare pressed down on her. She heard the whispers. "She's desperate. She wants attention. Doesn't she know her place?" Her manager's warning replayed in her head like a siren. "Don't cause trouble, Maya. Don't forget who you're serving." But Daniel's eyes, they weren't asking for pity. They were asking for freedom, for dignity. So slowly, Maya knelt down beside him and whispered, "We don't need their approval." She extended her hand again. Gasps rippled through the ballroom. One woman clutched her pearls. Another whispered, "This is disgraceful. Someone should stop her." Richard's jaw tightened. His voice dropped, icy and controlled. "You're making a mistake. Do you have any idea who you're dealing with?" But before Maya could respond, Daniel cut in, louder than anyone had ever heard him. "I don't care who they are. I want to dance." The words silenced the room. For the first time, Daniel wasn't just Richard Langston's disabled son. He was a young man demanding to be seen. Maya helped him position his chair toward the open dance floor. With careful steps, she began to guide him, moving with rhythm, letting him feel the music through the wheels beneath his hands. Daniel's laughter, awkward but genuine, filled the ballroom. And that's when the backlash hit. "Security!" someone barked. "You can't allow this," another guest hissed. "Completely unprofessional." Richard rose halfway from his chair, torn between fury and confusion. His empire had been built on control of rooms, deals, and reputations. But right now, his son was slipping from that control, pulled towards something Richard couldn't quite name. The whispers grew louder, uglier. "Of course she's doing this for attention. She's crossing a line." People like her don't belong here. Maya felt each word like a stone thrown at her back, but she kept moving, spinning Daniel's chair lightly so he could feel the glide of the dance. The boy's grin only widened, his cheeks flushed with joy. And yet the crowd wasn't moved. They weren't clapping. They weren't cheering. Their silence was heavier than noise, soaked with judgment. Richard's fists clenched at his sides. His son's happiness was undeniable, but the storm of disapproval around him threatened everything: his reputation, his standing, the image he had built over decades. One man leaned in close to Richard, whispering, "End this now, or you'll regret it. These people won't forget." The billionaire's heart pounded. His own son on one side, the vicious eyes of the elite on the other. And in that moment, everyone wondered, would he side with the world, or with his child? Richard slammed his glass onto the table, the crack echoing through the ballroom. "Enough!" His voice thundered over the music, halting every whisper, every breath. All eyes turned to him, the billionaire, the man whose approval or rejection could make or break careers. "Stop this nonsense immediately," he barked at Maya. "You are humiliating my son. Do you think this is some charity performance?" Maya froze mid-step. Daniel's wheelchair halted at the center of the floor. The boy's eyes, wide and wet, darted between his father and the crowd. "Dad, I wanted this," he whispered, his voice trembling. But Richard's fury drowned him out. "You don't speak like that to me in public. And you," he jabbed a finger at Maya, "you've overstepped. You're a waitress. Know your place." The words hung in the air, heavy and venomous. Gasps spread across the room, but no one intervened. No one challenged him. Daniel's lip quivered, his hands shaking as he gripped the wheels of his chair. "Why can't I just be normal? Why can't I just have one night without being treated like I don't belong?" His voice cracked into sobs that pierced the silence. The crowd shifted uncomfortably, but still no one moved. All that wealth, all that power, and not one dared to stand against Richard. And then Maya knelt beside Daniel, her hand firm on his shoulder. "You do belong," she whispered, but loud enough for the room to hear. "More than anyone here." The room split in two, half sneering, half stunned into silence. Richard's face turned red, veins bulging at his temple. His empire, his reputation, his control, slipping in front of everyone. And in that unbearable moment, the question hung over the ballroom like a storm. Would Richard crush the courage of a boy and a young black woman daring to defy him, or would something inside him finally break? The silence stretched on, thick and suffocating. Then, to everyone's shock, Richard's shoulders slumped. His anger faltered when he saw Daniel's tears. Tears not of embarrassment, but of deep, aching loneliness. The boy who had everything money could buy, but still longed for something priceless: dignity. For the first time in years, Richard knelt. Not to a business partner, not to a boardroom, but to his son. His voice broke, raw and human. "I'm sorry. I didn't see you." Daniel's trembling hand reached out, and Maya gently placed it in his father's. In that fragile connection, the room finally shifted. A few guests looked away in shame. Others whispered unsettled, realizing the cruelty in their silence. The dance ended without applause, without fanfare. Maya quietly returned to her tray. Daniel wiped his face, but his smile, small, defiant, remained. And Richard, he walked out of that ballroom, not as a billionaire, but as a father forced to confront his own blindness. Because here's the truth: Maya shouldn't have needed courage just to offer kindness. Daniel shouldn't have needed to fight for the right to be seen as more than his chair. And Richard shouldn't have needed a public reckoning to recognize his son's humanity. But this story is not just theirs. It echoes in classrooms where children are judged before they speak, in offices where silence protects privilege, in neighborhoods where kindness is weighed against prejudice. The question is not whether one billionaire can change. The question is, will we? Will we keep turning away when injustice unfolds before us? Or will we, like Maya, take that terrifying step into the silence and say, "You belong"? Because sometimes a single act of courage isn't just a dance, it's the first step toward justice.